Yo, what's up, travel fam? You ever get that itch to ditch the familiar and dive into the unknown? To swap out the humdrum for the thrill of a new adventure? We're all citizens of the world, right? But sometimes the welcome mat isn't rolled out for everyone. Navigating a new country can come with cultural complexity. And by that, I mean racism. Before you pack your bags, let's unpack the top places where Black travelers might tread carefully. Alright, let's kick things off with Germany, the land of Oktoberfest, precision engineering, and, apparently, some complicated feelings about race. Now, Germany has been working hard to confront its past. You know, the whole Nazi thing. But old habits die hard. Black travelers, especially those brothers and sisters from the African continent, have reported instances of racial profiling by the Polizei. And we're not just talking about big cities. Even in those quaint little Bavarian villages, you might catch some unfriendly stares. See, Germany has seen a rise in far-right movements, and let's just say, these guys aren't exactly known for their multiculturalism. It's like they skipped that chapter in history class. So yeah, while Germany has a lot to offer, be prepared for some potential awkwardness if you're a Black traveler. Now look, this isn't to say all of Germany is a no-go zone. There are plenty of welcoming people and incredible experiences to be had, but it's important to be aware of the potential for discomfort, especially if you're venturing outside the major cities. Think of it like this. You wouldn't go to a vegan restaurant and expect a steak, right? Similarly, in certain parts of Germany, you might encounter attitudes that are stuck in the past. It's not your job to fix it, but it is your responsibility to be prepared. And hey, sometimes the best way to combat prejudice is to challenge it head-on. Engage in conversations, share your experiences, and show the world that Black joy is a powerful force. Who knows, you might even change some hearts and minds along the way. Just remember, your safety and well-being come first. If a situation feels off, trust your gut and remove yourself. There's no shame in prioritizing your peace of mind, fam. Next up, we're heading east to India, a country bursting with vibrant colors, aromatic spices, and a fascination with, well, let's just say, lighter skin tones. Now, India's relationship with skin color is complex, rooted in centuries of social hierarchy. Unfortunately, this means that Black travelers, particularly those of African descent, often find themselves on the receiving end of some, shall we say, uncomfortable treatment. We're talking staring, overcharging, even being denied service in some cases. It's like they took the fair and lovely beauty standards to a whole other level. And tragically, it's not just limited to subtle bias. There have been reports of violence against African immigrants, highlighting the darker side of this colorism issue. Now, before you cancel your trip to see the Taj Mahal, remember that India is a land of immense diversity. You'll find incredible hospitality, breathtaking landscapes, and a culture that's both ancient and dynamic. However, it's essential to acknowledge the elephant in the room, or in this case, the colorism deeply ingrained in Indian society. Be prepared for stares, and don't be afraid to address any blatant discrimination you encounter. Remember, ignorance can be fought with knowledge, and sometimes a polite but firm conversation can go a long way. Plus, seeking out communities and spaces that celebrate diversity can provide a much-needed sense of belonging. Ultimately, traveling to India as a Black person requires a certain level of resilience and awareness. But hey, if you're up for the challenge, the rewards can be immense. Just remember to pack your patience, your sunscreen, and a healthy dose of self-awareness. Brazil, the land of carnival, caipirinhas, and apparently a whole lot of awkward moments if you're Black. Yeah, Brazil unfortunately has some work to do. You'd think a country with such a vibrant mix of cultures would have this whole getting along thing down pat. But sadly, that's not always the case. Now, I'm not saying don't visit. Brazil is beautiful, and the people are generally warm and welcoming. But, and this is a big but, racism exists. Like, actual racism. Not just the "you look like my cousin" kind. We're talking about the kind of racism that sees Black travelers getting profiled by the police more often, being treated unfairly in hotels and restaurants, and becoming the prime targets for tourist scams. It's almost like they have a welcome sign that says, "Tourists welcome, but black tourists, watch your wallets and maybe your backs too." It's a real shame, because Brazil has so much to offer. But until they address this issue head-on, black travelers need to be extra cautious. Look, I know what you're thinking, but Trevor, Brazil has a huge Afro-Brazilian population. How can there be racism? And it's a fair point. Brazil has a deep African heritage woven into their culture. But racism doesn't discriminate. It just is. In Brazil, it manifests in a weird way. People deny its existence while perpetuating it. It's like, oh, we don't see color here, but also you can't sit at this table. It's the kind of racism that makes you question your reality. But trust me, you're not. So what's the solution? Honestly, that's a question for Brazil to answer. But in the meantime, black travelers, arm yourselves with information. Know your rights. Be aware of your surroundings, and don't be afraid to call out racism when you see it. Because sometimes, the best way to fight ignorance is to shine a light on it. Japan, the land of the rising sun, sushi that actually tastes good, and well, sometimes a healthy dose of culture shock. Japan is generally very safe, even for solo travelers. But for black travelers, there's a but. Japan's racism is different. It's not always overt, more like microaggressions, stares, whispers, feeling watched, trouble getting into certain businesses. Some clubs have a no foreigners policy, often code for no black people, and being asked for photos. We're not zoo animals, but hey, at least the ramen is good, right? Cultural differences play a big role here. Japan is very homogeneous, so anything outside the norm stands out. Japanese politeness can sometimes feel a little loaded. It's like they're polite, but also slightly terrified. You question if you should have bowed lower or worn a different shirt. And then there's the language barrier. Navigating a new country with racial bias feels like playing a game without knowing the rules. Japan is incredible with a rich history and culture. Go in with eyes wide open. Be prepared for awkward encounters, and remember, a smile and a polite arigato can go a long way. All right, folks, buckle up, because we're about to get real. Russia, the land of vodka, bears, and, well, let's just say it's not exactly known for its warm and fuzzy embrace of diversity. In fact, Russia might be one of the most challenging places on this list for black travelers. We're talking next-level racism here, folks. Not just microaggressions and side-eye, but actual legitimate concerns about your safety. We're talking about a place where racist violence, xenophobia, and a whole lot of aggressive nationalism are, unfortunately, not uncommon. Black travelers have reported everything from verbal abuse to physical attacks. And let's not forget about the police harassment, especially in areas that don't see a lot of tourists. So yeah, Russia is definitely a place where you need to be extra vigilant. Maybe pack an extra can of pepper spray, and perhaps brush up on your Russian swear words, just in case. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Trevor, isn't Russia trying to change its image? What about the World Cup? And yes, they did host the World Cup. And to be fair, there were efforts made to curb the more, shall we say, overt displays of racism. But let's not kid ourselves, folks. Systemic racism doesn't disappear overnight. It's like trying to hide a bear in a snowstorm. It might be harder to see, but it's still there, lurking beneath the surface. So, what's the takeaway here? Is Russia a no-go zone for black travelers? Not necessarily. But it's definitely a place that requires careful consideration and a whole lot of awareness. If you do decide to go, do your research, stay in well-lit and populated areas, and maybe, just maybe, avoid wearing any clothing that could be misconstrued as a gang affiliation. Because in Russia, it's better to be safe than sorry. Italy. The land of pizza, pasta, and racism? Yeah, you heard that right. Turns out, even in the land of La Dolce Vita, things can get a little bitter if you're black. Now, I'm not saying you'll be greeted by gladiators and told to go back to Africa, but some black travelers have reported experiences that would make even a Roman emperor raise an eyebrow. Think being ignored in fancy stores like you're invisible, or getting the cold shoulder at restaurants, as if your melanin count affects your taste buds. And it's not just the subtle stuff. Some have even reported being hit with straight-up racial slurs. It's like Italy skipped the memo that the Roman Empire fell centuries ago, and some people are still stuck in the days of conquering and dividing. It seems Italy's got some work to do when it comes to treating all visitors with a warm benvenuto. Now, let's be fair, Italy's not some racist monolith. Millions of tourists, including black travelers, visit each year and have a fantastic time. But, like a bad plate of spaghetti, there are some unsavory bits mixed in. The country's been grappling with immigration issues, and unfortunately, that's fueled some tension and, let's be honest, straight-up prejudice. And it seems like smaller towns, where things move a little slower and traditions die hard, are where these issues tend to bubble to the surface. So, if you're planning a trip to Italy and you're rocking more melanin than Michelangelo's David, just be aware. Do your research, connect with other black travelers who've been there, and know that your experience might not be all sunshine and gelato. But hey, don't let that deter you. As they say in Italy, non tutte le ciambelle riescono col buco. Not all donuts come out with a hole. Sometimes, the imperfect ones are the most memorable. China, the land of ancient history, delicious dumplings, and blatant racism towards black people? Yeah, you heard that right. Turns out, behind the Great Wall, there's a whole lot of complicated history and prejudice that can make it tough for black travelers. Now, everyone's heard about the shocking treatment of Africans during the COVID-19 pandemic, especially in Guangzhou. People evicted from their homes, forced into quarantine, denied service at restaurants. It was like something out of a dystopian movie, except it was real life. And sadly, that wasn't an isolated incident. Even when there's not a global health crisis going on, black travelers often talk about experiencing this constant staring, like they're some rare species that just landed from Mars. And don't even get me started on the taxis. Getting a cab as a black person in China can feel like winning the lottery. It's that rare. But hey, it's not all bad. China's a massive country with over 1 billion people, so it's impossible to make sweeping generalizations. And many Chinese people are incredibly welcoming and curious about other cultures. However, there's this really awkward thing, that some black travelers experience in China. Imagine walking down the street, minding your own business, when suddenly you're surrounded by a group of strangers demanding to take pictures with you, like you're some exotic zoo animal. It's dehumanizing, to say the least. And then there are the microaggressions, those subtle but constant reminders that you're different, that you don't quite belong. People touching your hair without asking, making assumptions about your nationality, or constantly asking you to teach them how to say something cool in your language. Look, China's an incredible country with a rich history and culture, but it's important to go in with your eyes wide open, knowing that as a black traveler, you might face some unique challenges and uncomfortable encounters. South Korea, the land of K-pop, kimchi, and a complicated relationship with black people? Yep, you heard that right. While South Korea's become a global powerhouse with its music and movies taking the world by storm, it seems like its views on race haven't quite caught up. Now, don't get me wrong, South Korea is a fascinating place, and many tourists have amazing experiences there. But for black travelers, it can be a bit of a mixed bag. On the one hand, you've got the glitz and glamour of Seoul with its trendy cafes and K-pop concerts, but on the other hand, you've got this undercurrent of prejudice, this feeling that you're being judged based on the color of your skin. It's like South Korea's stuck in this weird paradox, where they love black culture but don't always love black people. Racism in South Korea is often more subtle, more insidious. It's the stares that linger a little too long, the whispers behind your back. Some black travelers have reported being denied entry to clubs and bars. South Korea's beauty standards are notoriously rigid. Black travelers have talked about feeling invisible or undesirable. South Korea is a country of contrasts, where ancient traditions meet modern technology. So, if you're planning a trip, go in with your eyes wide open. And at number 9, we have the United States of America. Yeah, you heard that right. The land of the free, the home of the brave, and still a place where being black can be a bit of a headache. Look, I love America. It's where I became a star. But it hasn't quite figured out treating everyone equally. Black travelers, listen up. You might be enjoying a burger 1 minute and getting side-eyed in a store the next. And don't get me started on driving while black. It's like some think a black person behind the wheel is a scene from Fast and Furious. Now, I'm not saying don't visit the US. It's a beautiful, diverse country with so much to offer. But be aware of the realities. Do your research, pick your spots, and remember, not all states are created equal. The United States is like a patchwork quilt. Progressive patches, not so progressive patches, and everything in between. One city feels like a Coke commercial, happy and united. Another feels like a time machine to 1955. Even within the same city, experiences vary by neighborhood. Hipster havens with man buns and kale smoothies, or places where hoodies get suspicious looks. America is complicated, a work in progress. Black travelers, stay informed and aware. Call out BS when you see it. Your voice matters. Your experiences are valid. Share your stories to help build a more inclusive America. Next up, we're heading down under to the land of kangaroos, koalas, and a surprisingly complicated history with race. That's right, folks. Coming in at number 10 is Australia. Australia's got a lot going for it. Beautiful beaches, stunning landscapes, and more accents than you can shake a didgeridoo at. But beneath that sunny exterior lies a truth that might make some of you think twice about booking that flight. For black travelers and Indigenous Australians, the reality can be a bit different. Black travelers have shared stories of being racially profiled by police and denied entry to clubs, followed around stores like they're about to pull a Winona Ryder. Indigenous Australians have faced systemic racism and discrimination. It's a side of Australia often swept under the rug. Now, some of you might be thinking, it can't be that bad, right? Maybe you'll go to Australia and have the time of your life. But for others, the experience might not be so bonza. So, if you're a black traveler planning a trip down under, do your research. Connect with other black travelers who've been there, because things can change in an instant. Awareness is key to creating a more inclusive Australia. So there you have it, folks. The top 10 countries where black travelers might want to pack an extra dose of patience and awareness alongside their sunscreen and swimsuits. Now, before you go canceling all your travel plans and building a bunker in your backyard, remember, knowledge is power. Should black travelers avoid these countries entirely? Not necessarily. But awareness is key. Knowing what to expect can help you navigate challenges and travel smarter. It's about being prepared, not paranoid. And hey, if you've had experiences, good or bad, in any of these places, share them in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going, because the more we talk about it, the more we can learn from each other and hopefully create a more welcoming world for everyone. Like and subscribe to Invest Meets Travel for more insightful travel and finance content. New videos every week. Stay informed, stay prepared, and travel wisely.